G'day gang, Simo and Ed here again, and we're going to talk about the Scandinavian leg of our world tour and what we learnt.
Awesome.
Now, this is a little bit different to all of our other videos.
Yep.
Because we've actually practiced. So we've just recorded over an hour of videos without sound. What a dick. Anyway.
It'd be a shame if it was our most watched video. But who knows?
We did a Charlie Chaplin.
Hey.
Anyway, it's Simo and Ed, and you're watching the Fastline Track Growth Show, where we talk all things karting and business. So, the Scandinavian leg of our world tour.
Yep.
We're talking 6,000 kilometres, 3 countries, 17 days, our longest trip ever, 40 tracks, 476 litres of fuel, 27 tolls, 1 ferry ride,
Yep.
and 1 speeding ticket.
I'd have bet that you'd have had one at least. I'd have probably gone higher. If it was a spread bet, I think I'd have gone higher than 1. But there you go, well done. Who knows? We might have a few days where they're rolling in yet, just to go, by the way, Mr. Heap, we caught you on a road you don't know very well.
Yeah.
Going 10 miles an hour faster than you should have been.
The speed limits over there are absolutely ridiculous. No, they really are. I mean, they've got this thing that, you know, you'll go out of a 60 zone and they'll have a sign with 60 with it crossed out. It's like, what the fuck's the speed limit there? It's not 60, I know that much. But what is it, 70, 80, 90?
Is this when you sped up, was it?
But then they had they had one where we went from 100 down to 90, down to 70,
Yeah.
then down to 40. We went down to 40 for 100 metres, and then we went to 50. So, what was the point in that? This happened several times. Anyway, I digress. So, what did we learn from this road trip? Well, you know, saw some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
For a start, the market there is extremely different to the normal market that you'd find here in the UK, maybe in Australia, in the US. In the fact that, for an outdoor track at least, they've only got 5 months of the year to make their money.
It's a lot of pressure,
Because, you know, you can't run a track in snow. Well, some people, some of them do ice karting on the lake.
I'd love to have a go at that.
Yeah. There's lots of difficulties around that.
That's why I'd like to have a go. There's a lot of pressure on, isn't there? If it's just a 5-month window.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, some of them, there's a little island, Long Island, off the east coast of Sweden.
Yep.
It's a real holiday destination.
Okay.
And they've probably only got 3 months of the summer to really make their money, because the island is fairly deserted outside of summer.
Crikey, so you've got a 12-week window to go make all your money.
It's
Took that pressure on, eh?
Yeah. And they tick over 500 customers a day during that busy time.
Oh, wow, okay. Sizable stuff then.
Yeah. And as a result, they run a lean ship.
Okay.
So, you know, it was pre-season there. I mean, the season will really kick off after midsummer, which is about the 24th of June.
Okay.
And then the kids go on holiday and all hell breaks loose. But they were running a lean ship, and it's pre-season, and they were running a track with 1 to 2 people.
Really?
So, one track, one person was booking them in, giving them the briefing, putting them in carts, sending them out the track, and then having to run onto the track and pull them out of,
oh my word.
you know, the barriers and things like that. So, you know, not that we'd recommend that, but you know, sometimes
we'd probably err towards the side of safety first and then worry about the cost after. But I can understand why they've done it potentially for cost.
Oh yeah.
And they've had no incidences, I'm guessing. Otherwise, they'd have got more people in. So who knows? Perhaps they've got it right.
Another thing was electric starts. So
On the
they've got
cars.
electric motor starts.
Right,
So
okay.
I mean, I'd never heard of electric motors starts before we ventured into Sweden.
But on this trip, you mean?
Well, no. But I go back several years when we started getting breaking out into Scandinavia, and Sweden was our first country in the area that we broke into.
Yeah.
And you start to get requests for the components for the electric starts, and I'd never seen them on go-karts before. But in Scandinavia, probably 80% of the tracks have these.
I can imagine the first order coming in. You go, no, that's wrong. They don't have those on go-karts.
It's like, what the hell are these? But yeah, and I reckon. So I watched a guy working by himself in the pit lane. He probably had 8 to 10 carts he had to start. 5 here in one line, 5 here in another line, and he's just wandering down the line. He's flicking a switch and pushing the button and fiddling with the throttle, and bang, 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 bang. So I reckon you'd save a minute to 2 minutes of starting up those carts
in a block
each race.
Each race.
So maybe in a matter of 2 hours you've got an extra session in, and I guess when you're that tight, you've got to make things work.
Every minute counts, doesn't it? I wonder if they did it for that reason, but it'd be intriguing to find out.
I don't know if they did it for that reason or it's in particular. So that area is dominated by 2 kart manufacturers.
Okay.
So Dino Karts in Denmark.
Yeah.
And Caroli Karts in Sweden. Okay. And they use electric motors, electric start motors. Whereas I don't think too many of the other manufacturers even offer it as an option.
Yeah.
So maybe that is part of the reason for it.
Sounds like it.
But that was very different, and there seems to be some sort of savings, some time savings there. Another interesting thing we saw were kart centres selling huge trophies. And I mean huge trophies.
I saw the photo.
I mean, we'll get Josie to put the photo up here so you can see what I'm talking about. But
I'm holding the trophy ready for the video.
They're not plastic.
Yeah.
They're proper metal trophies.
Yeah. No resin or anything in there?
No. They don't sell a lot of them, but they sell 2 or 3 each year. And they're like a couple £100.
I was amazed at this. £200 for a trophy. So that's decent money, isn't it? Who's buying those trophies though?
The corporates. Mainly the corporates.
So smart though.
But yeah, I mean, who wouldn't show off that trophy?
Yeah, in real terms, I don't know how many people would go, but let's say there's 40 people down at the track or 50 people down at the track. It's like £4 a head, isn't it, for the trophy? So in real terms, if they've got a cost per head budget, which a lot of companies will break it down into as well as the total figure, it's probably next to nothing. But what it does do is Widget Inc. or Widget PLC will have this huge trophy now, and they'll place it in their reception area probably. Loads of local people will walk past having a look, going like, "Where's this from? Oh, what's that down the road?" Yeah. What do you get this for? And I'll regale my epic race around the go-kart track.
Yeah. There were very few food offerings.
Yeah, this surprised me when you told me this earlier.
Yeah. In fact, the upsells were different too, and we'll get onto that later. But they weren't doing the balaclavas and the gloves. And then things like that. Yeah,
post-COVID in particular, that's really weird for me, but that could be true.
But they had the usual suspects, some drinks and some chocolate bars and crisps and things like this. But very few had hot food offerings.
I find that odd. I suppose I'm just wondering whether there's risk in there, or culturally it's perhaps not something where they'd eat out like that. It's intriguing, isn't it? There's no margin on branded product typically in the confectionery food side of business.
No, there isn't. We've talked about that, I think, in the newsletter before. But there were a couple of the bigger indoor places had food offerings. Okay. One in particular in Copenhagen Race Hall. It's a new centre. It's quite a nice centre.
Yeah.
They had this sort of American diner upstairs. And what was interesting was people were coming in and going up to the diner as opposed to coming in and
for the kart track.
Really?
So this is like, that's how if I had a go-kart track, that's how I would run it.
And the other thing they did they've got 2 venues. They've got another one in Aris, I think it is. And I've pronounced it wrong, and Danish people are swearing and throwing stuff at the camera, at the screen now.
Sounded like you just swore then, actually.
And during COVID, they changed their customer flow, as most people did. So you exited out through, you walked up the stairs and exited out through the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kept that because what they found was people were exiting out of the restaurant, smelling the food and staying.
And eating, there you go. Interesting.
I mean, smell is such a powerful selling tool. I mean, I put myself through university by being by waitering, being a barista, waitering and catering and this sort of stuff. But one of the places I worked at was the National Gallery in Victoria.
Okay.
And I had a little small coffee shop that was between exhibitions. So you'd walk out of one exhibition and you walk past the coffee shop through to the next exhibition.
Yeah.
And I used to have this trick. And what I would do is I would take, it was proper cappuccino thing, so you had coffee beans in your grinder, right? I would take the lid off the grinder.
Okay.
And I would just grind coffee.
Yeah.
Right? And you'd watch people walk out of the exhibition into the sink and go...
Smell the coffee.
And they'd smell the coffee, bang, you got a customer.
I love it.
So, that's a really cool tip.
Yeah, the supermarkets in the UK are well known for venting out the fresh bread that they're baking in the back into the store. So just as you get near the counters, you just get hungrier as you get closer to them. Interesting. Interesting.
Another thing was verbal briefings.
Yeah, this surprised me a bit.
Well, you've got pros and cons.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do a video briefing, you give yourself all the support for if there's ever a problem. It's like, how do you prove that you told them not to do that?
Yeah.
Well, here's the video. They've watched this video, so we've told them.
Yeah.
Whereas verbal briefing, you can't say that. However, with a verbal briefing, you can eyeball the customers. You can see the nervous ones and the ones that might get into trouble. You can see the rowdy ones that
that
might
need to get off the track before they get on it.
Keep an eye on so they don't bump each other off the track and things like this. And you can tell that they're listening. Now, I think probably the best solution is a combination of both.
Yeah, you see, when you first mentioned it, I'm on pro video for all the reasons you mentioned about just saying, well, look, there's the thing that they've just heard, and I can point to it, and then it's a record of it. I'm just back from Portugal, and I realised that they had drop-down video screens on the plane, and while the safety video was rolling, they also had the stewards there and stewardesses there going, pointing to all the exits and doing all the bits and pieces. They did a combination. Which I think is probably the way to go in that instance.
I guess, safety briefings on a plane, there's a script, and you usually got the head purser on their phone talking through, and they're reading from a script. Whereas at a track, you haven't got the guy reading from a script. He's doing it from memory.
Yeah.
It is certainly good to eyeball the customers, make sure that they've understood what they've watched in the video.
Over time, that you do forget stuff if you're just doing it verbally, unless you're reading from the script. Exactly.
And they're not reading from the script.
Oh, no, there's every chance something would get missed there.
Absolutely. Another interesting thing was that probably 80 to 90% of the tracks were using a cleaner fuel.
You mentioned
Aspen. Now, this fuel's it's quite a bit more expensive than normal fuel.
Yeah.
However, there's less CO2 emissions, and you get a whole cleaner environment. You don't get that soot that comes out of normal fuel.
Yeah.
There's just these black dust everywhere. You don't get that, and it's not that they're sweeping their tracks all the time and dusting everything. It's the fact that they're using this cleaner fuel.
The fuel. Is this for indoor and outdoor tracks? The Aspen. Got you thinking there?
You have got me thinking. Definitely indoor.
Yeah.
Because the indoor tracks, a lot of them were using the empty 44 gallon drums as sort of theming.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they were making tables out of it, or it was around the perimeter of the track. Outdoor tracks, I'm not sure.
I was just trying to get a handle on whether it's an environmental thing or whether it's, but internally it makes a lot of sense because you've got all the like the CO2 and everything building up. The customers are there, they're like, oh crikey, you know, they're indoors with it. Outdoors, I'm like, if it was there outdoors as well, I'd go, I wonder if that's an environmental cultural thing within the Scandinavian countries. Perhaps one of the tracks can comment under the video and let us know that's environmental or a bit of both or just for the customers. Who knows?
And one of the other interesting things, and I'd never noticed this before, I mean, we've done a tour of Sweden before, and we've done a partial tour of Denmark. A lot of tracks had fuel bowsers. So there was one that had a portable one in a container.
Yeah, I think this is so cool.
And a couple of others had, you know, in the parking area or out the back of the thingo, they had a fuel bowser, you know, with a tank underneath and a proper petrol thing like you'd see at the petrol station.
Yeah, I love that.
Now, you know, I don't see this anywhere else. And it's interesting because, you know, everyone else, you know, sends Joe Blow the Marshal down with half a dozen jerry cans. Fill
up the car with highly flammable fuel and fluid and then go driving around the local town.
You've got to pay that guy's wage while he's down doing that. You've got health and safety issues. And you're paying a premium for your fuel. I'm sure if you're buying, you know, getting a tanker to deliver it, you're probably getting cheaper fuel.
Yeah, I'd go with that. It's got to be. Well, you could buy from, definitely. The thing that surprised me when we talked about this earlier was because I was going, that sounds so cool. See what you just see the cars getting filled up, and you were like, no,
it's all done behind the scenes.
I just think that's a mistake. And the other thing that surprised me then was you said, the jerry cans, they're filling that up in front of everybody. Whereas the fuel bowser, they're like, it's round the back or hidden away. Oh, that's the wrong way around.
Yeah, but part of the problem might be health and safety again. You know, do you really want
open jerry cans?
well, you've got jerry cans stacked in the pit lane or close by. Yes, but you know, you've got this big fuel bowser. Do you really want that
indoors
next to your pit lane, whether it be indoor or outdoor?
Yep.
You know, no, but from a health and safety point of view,
I joke.
You know, we've got instead of having 100 litres of fuel, maybe we've got 200, 300, 400 litres of fuel in this big thing.
I would love to have a setup where maybe the cut-off is over at the bowser and that's just on the external wall, but the fuel tank is, the pump is there, so that when I'm looking, because if I've got two carts and one's been filled up over here with jerry cans, and I've got somebody over here filling it with the proper stuff I see down at the supermarket or on the Formula One, I know which cart I want to get into, even if it looks like it's the same cart. I'd make it more of a feature any way I can.
We talked about Upsells before, and we said they didn't do a lot of the, you know, balaclava and glove upsells that countless tracks around the world have taken on board since COVID, and a lot of them aren't going to stop this. But they were upselling the rides and the experience by sitting there and after a race, walking the track and showing them how to go faster, or on the track layout, going through and sort of saying, right, well, you can make a couple of seconds up here if, you know, you should be braking here, hitting this apex, and then accelerating here. And then, you know, they'll get quite a few people wanting to go out and try and beat the best time. You know? Especially if you've got a bunch of lads.
Yes.
And
the walkthrough.
You know, I mean, we were there and there were a bunch of girls. And it still worked on them. There were out of this group, there was one girl who was way out in front. And I believe she was a motocross rider.
So the Swedish champion for go-karting.
She had her own motocross helmet, and she was a member of this. It was a motorsports park, and she was a member there. And they had a race track and they had a motocross track. So I'm assuming she was that, but she was streets ahead of these other. And then there was one behind her. Then the rest of them were quite a distance behind. You know, after this talk, they've all gone out again, and there were some remarkable improvements. And there was even a bit of the rivalry that you would usually see with blokes.
Okay, interesting.
In this bunch of girls, which is great.
Yeah. I know Katrine was talking about there's very few upsells up to the point of sale. It was always after. And it was very much part of the experience. It was like a natural progression into the after sale, which was then another go on the karts. So once they'd got them there, people would end up spending money on the second go on the go-karts, which is fantastic because all the money for marketing has already been spent, hasn't it? So anybody else who has an extra ride that day is going to be massive profit for you.
And I think Sweden as a country, their rental go-kart tracks are more race orientated.
Yeah. Okay.
And in fact, you know, we found quite a few of them were pushing race formats as opposed to arrive and drive because they were more profitable and they got higher revenue for it.
That's interesting.
And you know, one race format might run over a period where 3 to 4 arrive and drives, or maybe even more.
Are they upselling that after the race?
No, they're pushing the customers before into these types of formats rather than just a normal arrive and drive.
I'd love to see that.
And the final thing was a lot of these tracks are spotless.
Yeah, Katrina said this. The word she used was they are absolutely spotless. I've seen the photographs. I know the first one you showed me when you said, here's a place that I've gone and visited. I thought, that looks nice. God, it's really clean. And I thought perhaps it's a new track. I didn't say anything. And then the second one, I thought, that's odd. Another really clean track. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing like picture after picture where you can eat your dinner off the race circuit. It's that clean. It's spotless, isn't it?
I mean, the mechanics areas were very clean.
What?
Very organised.
That's not what we've come to know and love.
No. No, you know, tools in the right places.
Have they got like the indoor tennis court flooring in there as well?
yeah. Nice flooring. It's covered in, you know, that acrylic sort of stuff. It's just clean.
Yeah, and all the karts looked brand new. I was going, they're new karts. No, were like, no, they're, and like I think the fleet you showed me, I think were 4 years old, and they looked absolutely brand new. And I was like, what?
And
what am I looking at here?
You know, a bit of spit and polish to clean the frames up.
Yeah.
You know, they will replace damaged bodywork, and they'll put new stickers on them all the time, and they look new.
Yeah,
they look really new.
We've mentioned
and
before.
It's sort of like, I go, these cars look new. How old are they? 4 years? 2 years? Like, no. Yeah.
Amazing.
And it's all about perception. The customer's going to go in, they go, oh, new karts. Yeah, they're new karts. You know, and hey.
Oh, I just love it. I've got this image now. Like I wasn't there with you, but I've just got this image of, you know, cleaner fuels, spotless environments, friendly people talking you through your race. It just all builds into this slightly, subtly different, you know, picture that it can be from some other countries that we talk about generally.
That's probably a good point to end this video.
Well, which country next?
Dunno. I mean, we've got. We want to get back to Spain. We want to get across to the Netherlands. We want to get down to Portugal. I want to see more of the US.
I'll put my name down for Portugal.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
I mean, you know, we did have quite a few tours planned for this year, but you know, with all the hassle with travelling and still, we just have knocked a few of them on the head.
The only thing that's really surprised me about this video is we got all the way through the Scandinavian trip without mentioning the dodgy priest. Well, we've run out of time, unfortunately, to talk about the dodgy priest. There is a story in there, so if we give him enough drinks in Dortmund in January 2023, I'm sure we'll get the full story out of Mr. Heap here in the bar in Dortmund. If that intrigues you should come along. But there is a true story about a dodgy priest in Scandinavia, isn't there?
Correct. The dodgy Swedish prince. Priest.
The prince. Have they got a royal family in Sweden? Yeah. Oh, crikey.
They've got a royal family in Denmark, Norway, and...
Got it Sweden with a dodgy prince this time.
All right. On that note, it's goodbye from me,
Cheerio from me.
and we'll see you next week.
See you soon.